coming back again for this Noirvember challenge with a movie that I have to say I discovered quite by chance on a trip to Paris, and I happened to have the fortune of watching it on the big screen there, which was quite a big deal in my book. That was obviously back in the day when we could travel, and I can surely tell you that there's no better place to watch a film noir movie than in one of those old movie theaters with the red chairs and carpet. It was indeed a memory that I shall treasure, and maybe because of that I am particularly fond of Fallen Angel, produced by 20th Century Fox, released in 1945 and directed again by Otto Preminger.
The very day I hit the town of Walton, I walked right into a smoldering drama. Perhaps if I had moved on, it wouldn't have ended as it did, and things would have gone differently for a lot of people. June Mills, for instance, would have been spared ridicule she didn't deserve, any more than she deserved what she got from listening to me. Then there was Stella, who knew the score all right, but held out for something that didn't fit her reputation.
Certainly, Otto Preminger left an indelible and enduring mark on film noir, predominantly known for Laura, which is a movie that we talked about in a previous video, and precisely because of its success, he directed the next year another noir called Fallen Angel. Considered by many as a duplication of the formula that was indeed a success with Laura, Fallen Angel is a clear evolution of indeed some of the components that we can see in Laura, and also to me is one of my favorites. In this case, instead of dealing with an upper class New York kind of crime, we dig yet a little bit deeper into the dark recesses of American society, which in many senses is a good way to continue where we left off with last video about the Night of the Hunter. In this case, we travel to Walton, a small town in California close to San Francisco, where Dana Andrews' character pulls out of a bus because he can't afford full fare to San Francisco. It is late at night, and then he finds a crummy diner called Pop's beside a stormy sea, which is a quite evocative scenario for what's ahead of him. In that diner, he meets the character played by Charles Bickford, who is quite a sadistic, I'd say, police officer, an obsessive man, and amongst other characters, he meets Stella, the sultry waitress that everyone has the hots for, wonderfully played by Linda Darnell. And it is here where the similarities between Fallen Angel and Laura start to appear, but the tone and the treatment, as we'll see later, are very different. Preminger is starting with this movie. Let's remember that Laura, a year before, was his first movie as a director, but he is starting with this movie to do something that he would perfect and would do often in subsequent movies, which is take a deeper look at society's most inner, less appealing conflicts. He's then beginning to highlight the simmering tension and fear for the unknown that the whole country of the US was experiencing right after the end of World War II. There was a lot of latent insatisfaction, and that is something that Preminger dabs into in this movie.
21, the Stork Club. That's where you belong, smothered in mink. I can see you there.
And do you see me with a ring on my finger? Somebody to give me a home?
Sure.
Now look. Last night I made up my mind.
Fallen Angel was based on a novel by Marty Holland, which was a name that was in fact a pseudonym for Mary Holland, one of crime fiction and noir fiction's most prominent female writers, such as Dorothy Hughes or Patricia Highsmith. There is little information in this case, or at least I wasn't able to find that much information on her other than her writing a couple of novels which were then adapted for the screen, such as Fallen Angel and also The Case of Thelma Jordan, starring Barbara Stanwyck. In this case, writer and producer Harry Kleiner, in his first job, adapted Holland's novel into a screenplay. He would go on to write the scripts for Carmen Jones, House of Bamboo, or Bullet, amongst other movies. But I have to say that in this case, the script might be the weakest spot of Fallen Angel, because there are, I think, some plot points that have some sort of an abrupt resolution, I should say. Perhaps it's just my impression, but I'd say that out of all the elements of this movie, perhaps the script is, for me, the weakest. In any case, we find here two very common representations, not only in film noir, but I'd say also narrative speaking in general. One is the arrival of a stranger into a town and how that person disrupts the seemingly perfect, quiet life there. And the other one is the juxtaposition of two very different female archetypes. One that it's very characteristic of film noir, which is the femme fatale, and the other one being the polar opposite of that, which is something that I also talked about for the video dedicated to Out of the Past. In this case though, the comparison is different than in Jack Turner's movie, because it's not so much a case of one belonging to one world and the other belonging to another. In this case, in Fallen Angel's case, it alludes to a duality of a good and a bad character, of good and evil coexisting in the same town, within the same person. So it's a different kind of juxtaposition in this case. In Fallen Angel, the good girl is played by Alice Faye, who was an actress not likely to appear in noir films. In fact, she was predominantly known for musicals produced by 20th Century Fox, especially in the 30s, with her being paired with Tyrone Power, who was the absolute star of Fox in movies like In Old Chicago or Alexander's Ragtime Band. At this stage of her career, she wanted to shift from those roles and that kind of movies and play more dramatic roles, so she approached Darrell F. Zanuck with that intent. She considered other projects, but she finally chose Fallen Angel. What happened in this case though is that she found herself overshadowed by Linda Darnell, who was a star on the rise for 20th Century Fox, and she was very disappointed by the fact that the studio chose to launch Linda's career in detriment of hers. And in fact, this was her last movie with that studio in a very long time. She reappeared in 1962 for another adaptation of State Fair, but I have to say that although Linda Darnell is fantastic, obviously she has a more juicy part as the femme fatale, but I'd say that also Alice Faye, I think she does a great job, and I think it works very well for the movie. In the midst of these two very different women, we find Dana Andrews playing, in this case, a different character than in Laura. He plays here a drifter, a quite unscrupulous drifter, especially in the first part of the movie, but as the film progresses and starts a relationship with June, Alice Faye's character, he slowly starts to show a more agreeable and more humane side. So as I was just saying, the duality in this movie is very much that contrast that lies within ourselves. So I should say that once again, Dana Andrews, to whom I already dedicated Laura's video, is once again fantastic in here. He could play those male characters with cynicism, certain passivity, and stoicism that were so characteristic for film noir. Other great actors and actresses in this movie are Anne Revere, who plays, in this case, Alice Faye. We have again Charles Bickford, and also a much welcome surprise of this movie is the presence of John Carradine, who has a small part here and plays a fantastic, kind of extravagant charlatan and opportunist. And as I was saying in the beginning as well, despite the similarities with Laura in terms of there being a crime of passion and also the search for the identity of the killer, there is, as I was saying, in my opinion, a certain evolution towards another type of movie, whereas in Laura, the criminal act and who's the killer are quite important. In Fallen Angel, I'd say it's the motivations of the characters and their isolation and the oppressive atmosphere they're at and their insatisfaction that it's more important. Also, the way architecture, the way spaces are used, I think it's different than in Laura and it's more expressive. Something also that I truly love about Fallen Angel is the way the opening credits were made. It is something that also precedes how Otto Preminger would use opening credits in his subsequent movies. He was the first, in fact, to work with Saul Bass, quite important in movie history because of his opening credits for North by Northwest, Anatomy of Murder, Vertigo, who even worked with Martin Scorsese. In the case of Fallen Angel, I don't know who made the movie credits, but they are used in the same way that Saul Bass would be recognized for. In any case, I should say Fallen Angel is an absorbing movie that I highly recommend. Alright, so that's all I have for you for today's video. I truly hope that you give this movie a chance if you haven't watched it already. If you have watched it, I would love to know your thoughts about it. As always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for joining me today for this Noirvember challenge. Thank you so much for sharing the love for classic movies. Take care, stay safe, and see you all tomorrow with another video. Bye!